My name is Helena Moore. I'm 32 years old, and I keep ships from dying. I'm a lead diesel mechanic at a commercial shipyard. My days are engines the size of studio apartments, bolts that need two people to move, and the kind of noise that rattles your bones. If I miscalculate a timing or miss a hairline crack in a seal, a tugboat goes dead in the water and the company starts bleeding $50,000 an hour. In my world, things either work or they don't. There is no kind of fixed, no mostly safe. Gray areas sink ships. Unfortunately, my ex-boyfriend, Victor, lived his entire life in the gray. When we met, he seemed like the exciting opposite of everything I was. He was 28, charming, pretty, in that polished sales rep way. Pharmaceutical sales, always in a crisp shirt, always smelling like some expensive cologne that came with a Latin name and a marketing campaign. We'd been together for 18 months, long enough to meet each other's families, memorize coffee orders, and develop silent routines. He had his own apartment downtown. I had my house near the docks. We didn't live together, but he spent 4 or 5 nights a week at my place. His toothbrush in my bathroom. His shirts folded into a corner of my dresser. His sneakers by my front door. He always kept his own lease, his own primary address, his own just-in-case escape hatch. That detail will matter later. For the first year, it was good. Victor was high energy, affectionate in that love bomb way that makes you feel like the sun. He listened to my rants about engines and union politics. I listened to his stories about client dinners and leveraging relationships. I didn't always understand what he actually did. Half his job description sounded like buzzwords, but he seemed good at it. He liked to say he operated at a high level. I operate at ground level with grease under my nails. Somehow we met in the middle, or so I thought. The trouble started about 4 months ago, the day Tanya joined his sales team. At first, Tanya was just a name. Tanya is hilarious, he'd say, scrolling through his phone. Tanya totally messed up the coffee order this morning. You'd have lost it. She put 6 sugars in my cup. Just harmless little anecdotes sprinkled into his day. I didn't care. I work around men all day, and a few women. We joke, we talk. It's professional. Boundaries are a thing where I work, unless you want a harassment seminar and a write-up. I assumed Victor operated the same way. I trust people until they give me a reason not to. That policy has saved me a lot of wasted energy and cost me a few illusions. The shift from coworker Tanya to work wife Tanya wasn't one big event. It was 1,000 little cuts. It started with the texting. We'd be on my couch after dinner, some action movie humming in the background, my legs across his lap. The room would be dark except for the blue light from his phone lighting his face, the tiny huffs of laughter he tried to hide. One Tuesday night, around 10, I paused the movie. "Who's that?" I asked. "You've been giggling for the last 20 minutes. He didn't even look up. "Just Tanya. She sent this meme about our manager. She's roasting him. It's funny." "It's 10 p.m. on a Tuesday," I said. "Doesn't Tanya have a husband or Netflix or literally anything else to do?" "Wow." He rolled his eyes. "Relax, Lena. She's just a friend. It's called building rapport. You wouldn't understand corporate culture." There it was, the first dismissive flick. I could have pressed harder then. But you don't shut down a machine the first time it makes a weird noise. You listen. You track the vibration. You figure out where the friction is. The friction was Tanya. The lubricant was disrespect. The text became working lunches that ran long. Then team happy hours that somehow always lasted until 9 or 10. He'd show up at my place smelling like cocktails and a perfume I didn't wear, something sweet and musky that clung to his blazer. "Tanya's kind of a hugger," he explained once when I wrinkled my nose. "It's platonic. You know how people in sales are. We're tactile. We connect." "Salespeople," I said, "are from Ohio, not Europe. You're not in a French film, Victor." "You are being absolutely ridiculous." The way he snapped it stung more than the words. "If you were more secure, this wouldn't bother you." That was the moment my brain flipped a switch. My heart was still in it, but my mind stepped outside the relationship, notebook in hand, taking notes. I stopped initiating dates, stopped sending good morning texts. I watched the way I'd listen to a failing engine. Not panicked, just curious. 3 weeks ago on a Friday night, the diagnostics came back. "We should celebrate your overtime," Victor had said earlier that week. "I'll take you to the steakhouse downtown. My treat." Fine by me. I'd just finished a 60-hour week dealing with a harbor tug engine overhaul. My back ached. My hair still smelled faintly like coolant even after I washed it. All I wanted was a rare steak, a quiet corner, and a conversation with my boyfriend. Instead, I got Victor in his phone. From the moment we sat down, he was half present, thumbs moving, screen lighting up over and over. The waiter brought bread. He didn't look. I ordered a drink. He didn't look. Our appetizer arrived. He laughed at something on his phone. "Can you put that away?" I finally said, cutting into my ribeye. "We're at dinner, not a live stream." He huffed, like I'd asked him to donate a kidney. Then he placed the phone face down on the table with exaggerated patience. "You've been so moody lately," he said. "It's kind of exhausting." "I'm not moody," I replied. "I'm tired. There's a difference. And I'm tired of competing with Tanya for your attention. If you want to text her, go text her. Just not on my time and my dime." That was when the mask slid. He looked at me with this mix of pity and contempt that made my jaw tighten. "Helena, you are being incredibly insecure right now," he said. "Tanya is my work wife. It's literally a normal corporate dynamic. We spend 12 hours a day together. She understands my world. You work with wrenches and grease? You don't get it." "I get respect," I said quietly. "And texting another woman while you're taking your girlfriend out isn't respectful. Call it networking, call it synergy, call it whatever makes you feel smart. It's emotional cheating." He laughed, loud, a sharp, ugly sound that made the couple at the next table glance over. "This is so controlling," he said. "This is jealous pick-me energy, Helena. You're acting like some bitter girl who can't handle that her man has female friends. You want me to shrink my world to make you feel big." The words hit, but not the way he thought. Jealous pick-me energy. That's what he saw when he looked at me. Not someone who'd stayed up with him when he was sick, who'd fixed his car for free, who fed him when his commission checks were late. A bitter, insecure woman with pick-me energy. I stared at him, at the man I'd planned a future with, wondering when exactly he'd become a stranger. The phone he'd placed face down buzzed on the table. Without thinking, he flipped it. The screen lit up bright in the dim restaurant. A message from Tanya. "Miss you already. Save me a seat tomorrow." He saw me read it. For a split second, guilt flickered. Then his spine straightened and his eyes hardened, like he'd doubled down inside himself. "See," he said. "She's just being friendly. It's an inside joke. The heart is ironic. You wouldn't get it." In my head, I walked through the checklist. System, relationship. Status, catastrophic failure. Repairable? Not without tearing the whole engine apart. Recommended action. Shut down, scrap for parts, never reinstall. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't demand he block her. That's what people do when they're still trying to save something. I knew right then that this engine was done. I took a breath, set my fork down, and wiped my mouth with the napkin. My heartbeat had slowed, not sped up. It felt like the calm right after a storm hits, and you realize your house is still standing, but the roof is gone. "You're right," I said. His face shifted into a smug little smile. "I'm glad you can admit that. If you worked on your insecurity, Helena, things between us could be—" "No," I cut in, matching his calm. "I mean, you're right. I shouldn't be jealous. I shouldn't be controlling. You should be free to do whatever you want." I signaled the waiter. The check came. Victor reached for his card. I laid mine down first. "Helena, I said I was treating—" "I've got it," I said. "I like clean books. No debt, no leverage. No one gets to say they paid for my last supper." He frowned, but didn't argue. The waiter left. I signed the slip. "Ready to go?" I asked, standing. "Finally." He grabbed his phone, already tapping out a reply. "Let's go back to your place. I could use a—" "I'm dropping you at yours," I said. "I've got an early shift." Annoyance flashed in his eyes, but he shrugged. "Whatever. You're in a mood." The car ride was almost silent. I drove. He texted. Once, he snorted at something on his screen. I didn't ask what. When we pulled up in front of his downtown building, I put the truck in park. "Call me tomorrow," he said, leaning in for a kiss. I turned my head. His lips grazed my cheek. "Good night, Victor." He pulled back, confused, then covered it with irritation. "Fine. Night." He slammed the door and disappeared into the lobby, already staring at his phone. I watched the doors close behind him, my fingers curled around the steering wheel. Then I exhaled, a long, shaky breath, and drove away. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the plan was fully formed in my head. Not rage, not revenge, just a clean shutdown. I walked into my house, kicked off my boots, and headed straight to the bathroom. His toothbrush, his face wash, the fancy hair product he insisted on. All of it went into a trash bag. Bedroom next. Shirts from my drawer, socks half hidden under the bed, the hoodie he forgot after a weekend, the sneakers by the front door, the cologne bottle he kept on top of my dresser. I wasn't throwing his things away. I was returning them to their rightful home. The life he'd carefully kept separate from me. 2 bags later, I loaded them into the back of my truck. The night air was cold and sharp. The shipyard cranes loomed in the distance, skeletons outlined against the sky. I put the truck in gear and drove back downtown, the bags rustling quietly behind me. At his building, I didn't buzz up. The doorman, who'd seen us come and go 100 times, raised his eyebrows when I carried the bags in. "These are Victor's," I said, setting them down. "He left them at my place. Can you give them to him? And don't buzz him until I'm gone, okay?" He gave me a long, knowing look, then nodded. "You got it." I pressed a folded 20 into his hand. Not as a bribe, just a thank you for not asking questions I wasn't ready to answer. Back in my truck, I didn't cry. I drove home, walked into my quiet house, and sat on the couch with my phone in my hand. One by one, I opened every app. Victor, block. Instagram, block. Facebook, block. LinkedIn, for good measure, block. Payment apps, block. No long speeches, no angry paragraphs he could screenshot and send to Tanya for sympathy. He'd called me a bitter, jealous woman with pick-me energy because I cared about respect. Fine. Now I didn't care at all. By the time I put my phone face down, the relationship was more than over. It was gone. Like it had been dismantled, palletized, and carted off. Some people think the most brutal thing you can do is scream. They're wrong. The most brutal thing you can do to someone who feeds on drama is simple. You agree with them, and then you disappear. When I woke up the next morning, my house felt wrong. Not haunted, just empty in a way that made every sound louder. The ticking of the kitchen clock, the hum of the fridge, the distant foghorn from the bay. For the first time in over a year, there was no extra toothbrush in my bathroom cup, no blazer draped over my chair, no half-finished protein shake in my sink. Just my life, my mess, my quiet. I showered, dressed, tied my hair back, and headed to the shipyard before the sun was fully up. The air smelled like salt, metal, and diesel. The closest thing I have to incense. I clocked in, grabbed my tools, and threw myself into work. If there's one upside to heartbreak, it's that engines don't care. They don't ask how you're feeling. They either run or they don't. And if they don't, they give you something solid to fix. By 10 a.m., I was shoulder deep in a valve assembly, headlamp on, forearms already streaked with grease. The world had narrowed to torque specs and tolerances. My phone was in my locker, on silent. That was intentional. It wasn't until I went to grab a water bottle and checked it that I saw the notification. Not a text, not a call. A cluster of messages collapsing under one small label. Blocked activity. I opened it. Missed call, Victor. Missed call, Victor. Missed call, Victor. Blocked message. Helena, what is this? Why are my things with the doorman? Blocked message. Is this some kind of joke? You're being dramatic. Call me. Blocked message. You are being so childish right now. We need to talk like adults. Answer your phone. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the thread. Old reflexes twitched. Your brain doesn't know the difference between a broken bone and a broken pattern. It just screams, fix it, fix it, fix it. I locked the phone and slid it back into my locker. I had fixed what needed fixing. By noon, the missed attempts multiplied. Blocked message. So that's it? After everything I've done for you? You just dump my stuff and disappear? Blocked message. You're literally ghosting me. Do you realize how emotionally abusive that is? You're acting like a narcissist. Blocked message. Answer the phone. He still thought if he arranged the words abusive and narcissist in the right order, I'd feel guilty enough to step back into the fire. When I slid the locker shut, I caught my reflection in the metal. My expression wasn't cold or smug. It was tired. Deep tired. Bone tired. But there was something else under it. Something I hadn't seen in a while. Resolve. I wiped my hands on a rag and went back to the engine. Around 2, someone clapped a hand on my shoulder. I turned to see Dave, one of the other mechanics, grinning under a smear of black on his cheek. He's built like a retired linebacker and laughs like a cartoon villain, but he's softer than half the guys here ever admit to being. You good? He asked, leaning against the metal housing. Yeah, why? He snorted. Because your ex-boyfriend is apparently under the impression you've had a psychotic break. I blinked. He called you? Called, texted, sent a voice note. Dave rolled his eyes. Guy is persistent, I'll give him that. He says, and I quote, Helena is having some kind of meltdown and kicked me out over a misunderstanding with a coworker. I blew out a slow breath. Of course. What did you tell him? I asked. That I'd ask you before I assumed anything, he said. So I'm asking. Did you have a psychotic break, or did you just do what you should have done months ago? I smiled, small but real. I didn't throw him out. He has his own apartment. I returned his belongings to their registered address. Very efficient of me. Dave barked out a laugh. God, I love you. He called it a misunderstanding, I added. I called it an emotional affair with his work wife. Also, I apparently have jealous pick-me energy, so what do I know? Dave's jaw dropped. Then he shook his head with a low whistle. He actually said that to you? To your face? Word for word? He looked toward the open bay doors, where the cranes swung slowly over the water. You want me to talk to him? Already did, he answered his own question, holding up his phone. I texted him back. Helena is fine. She's not having a breakdown. She just realized you two aren't compatible. Please respect her space. How do you take that? About as well as you think. Dave smirked. He tried to loop me in, said you're overreacting, that Tanya is just a friend. I told him if a friend was texting me hearts at 10 p.m., my wife would burn the shipyard down and I would let her. I snorted. Your wife would at least wait until after shift. Oh, absolutely. He clapped my shoulder again. Proud of you, by the way. Most people scream and cry for 6 months before they do what you did in one night. That was the old me, I said. This version runs on Ghost Protocol. He tipped an imaginary hat and headed back to his bay, whistling. For a while, the day stayed quiet. The sun inched across the sky. The heat in the shop rose with the hours. I lost myself in the work. It's amazing how healing it is to tighten bolts to spec and watch something that was broken roar back to life. Around 6, I clocked out, drove home, and made myself a steak. Salt, pepper, cast iron pan, done. 1 plate, 1 fork, 1 chair pulled out at the table. It didn't feel as lonely as I'd expected. Halfway through the meal, my phone buzzed on the counter. I glanced over. Ring doorbell. Motion detected at front door. My stomach tightened, not with fear, but with that particular sinking annoyance you get when you know exactly what's waiting outside. I set my fork down, wiped my hands, and opened the app. The camera feed popped up, wide-angle fisheye view of my porch. There he was, Victor. His hair slightly messy, still in his work clothes, one hand jabbing the doorbell over and over, the other pounding on the door. Helena, he shouted, voice slightly distorted through the speaker. Open the door. This isn't funny. I could hear the echo in my living room. I didn't move. He rang the bell again, and again, and again. You can't just ghost me after 18 months, he yelled. This is abuse, do you hear me? This is literal psychological abuse. I deserve a conversation. I deserve closure. I watched him through the screen, standing 6 feet away on the other side of solid wood. He paced, ran his hands through his hair, knocked again. I know you're home. Your truck is right there. Stop hiding and talk to me like a grown woman. You are gaslighting me right now. The word he'd learned 3 months ago and had been dying to use on someone. I muted the audio and set the phone on the coffee table, screen still showing his face. Then I picked my fork back up and took another bite of steak. The knocking went on. The doorbell chimed. He shouted. The camera's night vision kicked in, washing him in gray tones. After about 10 minutes, the feed flickered as someone else stepped into the frame. My neighbor, Mrs. Gable. She's 70, 5 feet tall, and rules this street like a tiny retired general. She wears pastel cardigans and house slippers and has absolutely no fear of confrontation. She marched onto her porch, hands on her hips. Young man, her voice cut through, faintly audible, even without unmuting. Victor spun around, startled. Sorry, ma'am. This is private. My girlfriend. If she wanted to talk to you, Mrs. Gable said, she'd have opened the door. She clearly doesn't. Go home before I call the police for disturbing the peace. He laughed, that incredulous sound people make when authority doesn't bend for them. This is not your business, okay? This is between us. We've been together for almost 2 years. She can't just... That truck's been in her driveway longer than you have, she snapped, and I've never seen it peel out at 2 a.m. Leave, now. Victor stood frozen, anger and humiliation warring on his face. For a second, I thought he might try to argue with a 70-year-old woman in bunny slippers. Then he cursed under his breath, turned, and stomped down the steps. The camera caught the way he yanked his car door open and slammed it hard enough to make the lens shake. A second later, headlights swept across my living room wall. Tires screeched as he reversed too fast and shot off down the street. The feed went still again. Just my empty porch. the potted plant I kept forgetting to water, the little welcome mat he used to joke about stepping over, calling it entering heaven. I unmuted the audio just in time to hear Mrs. Gable mutter, "Idiot," before shuffling back inside. I sat there, fork in hand, staring at my own front door on a 4-inch screen. My heart hurt. Of course it did. You don't just rip someone out of your life and not feel the phantom limb. But there was also this quiet, bone-deep relief. Victor thought I was punishing him. That ghosting was about control, but it wasn't. It was the absence of control. The moment I accepted I could not make him respect me, or understand me, or suddenly see Tanya for what she really was. I could only control who had access to me. The next morning, the flying monkeys arrived. Not literal monkeys, his friends. While I was sipping coffee before work, my blocked folder pinged again, this time from unfamiliar numbers and handles. Blocked DM from Jess. You're a coward for ghosting him. Real women communicate. He was just networking. Blocked DM from Sammy B. Victor is devastated. You should be ashamed for throwing away a good man over your insecurity. Blocked DM from Leah Sales. Profile pic. Group of women at a rooftop bar. The old me would have opened each one, crafted careful explanations, screenshot the heart emojis, send receipts, try to convince strangers that I wasn't crazy, that I'd tried, that I was reasonable. The new me turned the phone over, face down on the table, and finished my coffee. Explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you is like trying to explain torque specs to a seagull. They're not built for it. They don't live in your world. The shipyard did, though. When I drove in and saw the cranes framed by morning light, heard the clank of metal and the shouts of guys on the docks, I felt something settle back into place. By the time I walked into the break room for a mid-morning coffee, my blocked folder had a dozen more attempts. I didn't open them. I had engines to fix. And somewhere in this maze of steel and salt and diesel, a man named Elliot was about to walk back into my life in a way Victor had always feared. But that comes later. For now, Ghost Protocol was simple. No explanations, no bargaining, no more chances. Just peace. And once you taste peace, chaos doesn't feel like love anymore. It just feels loud. The following Monday, something strange happened. The shipyard was its usual symphony of controlled chaos. Trucks backing up, cranes swinging, welders throwing sparks across the yard. But inside me, the noise had finally settled. Ghosting Victor had created this eerie, unfamiliar silence. And for the first time in months, I could hear myself think. I was pouring burnt coffee into a chipped mug in the break room when the door swung open. And there he was. Elliot, 30 years old, logistics coordinator, the guy who keeps the entire yard flowing. Containers, equipment, shipments, deadlines. If engines are the heart of the port, Elliot is the pulse. He wore his standard uniform, steel-toed boots, dark jeans, a reflective vest, and a clipboard tucked under one arm. His hair was slightly messy from the wind on the docks, and there was a pen behind his ear. Classic him. "Morning, Helena," he said, offering a tired but warm smile. "Heard through the grapevine that you're officially single." I groaned softly. "Dave?" "Dave," he confirmed with a smirk. "He's like the shipyard's town crier. I think he was already planning a parade." I rolled my eyes. "Well, news travels fast." He leaned against his counter, crossing his arms. "Sorry to hear it, though. Breakups suck." "Not this one," I admitted, taking a sip. "This one feels overdue." His eyebrows lifted, but he didn't pry. That was Elliot. He always left space, never pushed, never assumed. I don't know what exactly Victor had sensed the first time he met Elliot, but he'd sensed something. That day at the company barbecue a year ago had changed everything. A hot summer afternoon. Dave had organized a barbecue on his big property near the shoreline. Half the yard showed up. I brought Victor. He insisted on dressing casual, which somehow meant a linen button-down and loafers that cost more than my monthly tool budget. Elliot was already there, tending the grill with Dave, smoke curling around him while he flipped burgers with methodical focus. "Helena," he called out when he saw me, waving his spatula. "Come taste this monstrosity Dave calls seasoning." Dave threw a towel at him. "My seasoning is perfect, and your clipboard doesn't make you a chef." I laughed, walking over with Victor trailing slightly behind me. "This is my boyfriend, Victor," I introduced. Elliot shook his hand politely. "Nice to meet you, man. You work in sales, right? Heard you closed a big quarter." Victor brightened instantly. Compliments were emotional Advil for him. Yeah, Q2 was strong. I specialize in, well, it's complicated, but high-level negotiations." Elliot nodded. "Sounds stressful. Respect." Then, Very naturally, Elliot turned back to me. Hey, Lena, you seen the backlog for tomorrow? We're expected to unload containers from 2 ships, and Dock 7's crane is down again. Don't remind me, I groaned. I'm handling diagnostics this week. It's throwing errors for no reason. I can shuffle schedules until you get me the all clear, he offered. Let me know by noon? Deal. We slipped into that comfortable work talk rhythm we'd always had. Real conversation, real substance. Victor stood there, smiling politely but fading into the background. On the drive home, he was buzzing. That Elliot guy wants you, he accused. I blinked. What? No, he doesn't. We talk about shipping manifests and malfunctioning cranes. He's a pick-me guy, Victor insisted. He does that quiet confidence thing to get women. You're exactly his type. We're colleagues, I said. Adults can have platonic respect. Not everything is flirting. He scoffed. Then do me a favor. Keep your distance. Out of respect for our relationship. I'd honored that request for a year. A year of professionally polite nods instead of natural conversation. A year of avoiding the break room at the same time he did. A year of shrinking something harmless to soothe someone else's insecurity. Funny how Victor never honored my boundaries with Tanya. Elliot took a slow sip of his coffee, studying me over the rim. You look lighter, he said softly. I don't think I've seen you stand this straight in months. I snorted. Guess toxic relationships are bad for posture. His lips twitched. So, you doing okay? Really? I nodded. Better than okay. I'm free. He nodded thoughtfully, then said, almost casually, Dave told me why you ended things. Something about a work wife? I exhaled sharply through my nose. Tanya! Ah, he winced. That kind. She'd text him at 10 p.m. with heart emojis. Happy hours until 9. Perfume all over him. I shrugged. But apparently, I was the insecure one. Elliot made a sound, half incredulous, half amused. He actually told you that? Oh no, it gets better. I took a sip of my coffee. According to Victor, I have jealous pick-me-girl energy. Elliot choked on his drink. He coughed, eyes watering. No way. Way. For the record, he said once he could breathe. Standing up for your boundaries isn't pick-me energy. That's called self-respect. But men like him confuse self-respect with threats. I opened my mouth, then closed it. His words hit deeper than he knew. He didn't fill the silence. He just let it sit, like someone who knows how to hold space instead of occupying it. I'm grabbing a beer at Rusty Anchor after shift, I heard myself say. If you're free, you should join. He looked surprised. Then he smiled. A real one. Small and warm. I'd like that, he said. But I'm buying the first round. I just got my quarterly bonus, and I refuse to let Dave tell everyone I'm cheap. And just like that, something shifted. Not fireworks. Not butterflies. Not the dopamine rush Victor specialized in. Just steadiness. Rusty Anchor that evening. Rusty Anchor is the kind of bar where the floors are sticky, the music is old rock, and the beer taps work half the time. It's perfect. Elliot was already at a high-top table when I walked in, 2 beers waiting. He wasn't on his phone. He wasn't scanning the room for attention. He was just there, present. We talked for 3 hours. Not about vibes or networking or corporate synergy, about the jobs we'd worked, the families we came from, the people we'd loved and lost, the parts of ourselves we weren't proud of. He listened, really listened. And when I laughed, it wasn't that nervous, performative laugh I'd perfected around Victor. It was real, unpolished. Around midnight, he walked me to my truck. You deserve quiet, he said simply before heading to his own car. Not the kind you get from ghosting someone, the kind you get when someone actually respects your peace. That sentence echoed in my head the whole drive home. And when I lay in my bed that night, no extra toothbrush in the cup, no cologne on the pillow, my chest didn't feel empty. 6 weeks. That's how long it took for my life to finally feel mine again. 6 weeks without doorbell meltdowns. 6 weeks without late-night emotional audits. 6 weeks without Victor's voice in my head, telling me how I should be acting, feeling, reacting. In that stretch of quiet, Elliot and I slipped into something steady. No labels, no pressure, just ease. We got beers after shifts, fixed a grill together at Dave's cookout, watched the cargo ships crawl across the horizon from the dock wall. He never rushed, never pushed, just showed up, in small, consistent ways that didn't need an audience. If Victor and Tanya were a storm of emojis and ego, Elliot was clean blue sky. And I didn't realize how starved I'd been for clear weather until I was living in it. I wasn't posting about it, wasn't bragging, just finally breathing. But I made one mistake. I posted one photo, A simple sunset picture at a waterfront bar, 2 beers on a table, the ocean behind them. No caption, just a tag, @ElliotJames. I didn't know Victor had a burner account. I found out 3 days later. The shipyard, Friday, 3 p.m. I was elbow deep in a piston assembly when my radio crackled. Dispatch. Helena? We've got a situation at Gate 4. A civilian vehicle is blocking a delivery truck. The driver is refusing to move and is demanding to speak to you. I froze. Security is about to tow it, dispatch added, but she's screaming your name. She, not he. I felt the familiar pulse of irritation, not fear, thump behind my ribs. Copy, I said. I'm coming. I wiped my hands on a rag, grabbed my vest, and jogged the quarter-mile toward the main gate. The air stung with salt. Seagulls scattered overhead, screaming at the crane operators. My boots hit the pavement in steady, firm strides. And then I saw it. A white Audi, parked sideways, blocking a flatbed truck loaded with steel plates, 40,000 pounds of material that needed to be moved yesterday. The trucker leaned on his horn, shouting out the window. 2 security officers hovered at the driver's door of the Audi, trying, and failing, to reason with the person inside. She threw the door open and stepped out. Tanya, dressed like she was about to pitch $1 million account, heels, fitted blazer, perfect makeup, hair curled and pinned like she'd come straight from a corporate photo shoot. She looked absurdly clean against the grime and noise of the port. She was arguing with Jerome, the head of security. I just need 5 minutes, Tanya snapped. He'll come out if you tell him I'm here. Ma'am, Jerome said patiently, this is a secure area. You're blocking a scheduled shipment, and I need you. Helena! Her voice shot across the asphalt when she spotted me. There you are, Tanya called, waving frantically. Thank God. Every muscle in my body tightened. The trucker laid on the horn again. Tanya spun and screamed at him. Shut up! This is important. I walked up slowly, jaw tight. Tanya, I said, move your car. She blinked rapidly, her mascaraed lashes fluttering like she couldn't believe I'd open with that. No, she said finally, voice trembling with outrage. Not until we talk. We have nothing to talk about. She stomped closer, heels clicking dangerously on uneven pavement. Oh, really? She spat. You ghost Victor, block him everywhere, refuse closure, and then you post a picture with that dock rat, that home-wrecking warehouse guy? Elliot, I corrected. I don't care what his name is, she screamed, hair bouncing with the force of it. He stole Victor from me. My eyebrows shot up. Stole? Yes. Tanya jabbed a finger at my chest. Victor and I had a connection. An emotional one, a deep one. And you manipulated him into blocking me from it. You guilt-tripped him until he couldn't even talk to me anymore. I stared at her, stunned. You two were texting hearts at 10 p.m., I said flatly. It was friendly, she scoffed. Hearts don't mean anything. Everyone uses hearts. You're jealous. You've always been jealous. Jerome stepped forward. Ma'am, you're trespassing. Move the car or... Shut up, she snapped at him. This is between us women. I'm not doing this, I said. Move your car. Tanya's lip curled. You're dating him just to spite me, she hissed. You're trying to hurt Victor. You think you're such a big shot with your little tools and your little engines. But you don't know anything about real relationships. You just want control. Real relationships. Control. The irony could have crushed a freight container. Before I could answer, a golf cart rolled up behind us. Elliot. Hard hat, clipboard, vest. Professional, calm. Scanning the chaos with the same expression he used when a shipment was 10 hours behind schedule. He stepped off, walked toward me, and stopped at my side, close enough that I felt the warmth of him. Is this the obstruction? He asked, eyes never leaving the scene. Tanya froze. Her face went blood red. You, she snarled. Elliot didn't blink. Ma'am, you're blocking a delivery on a secure port. Move your vehicle, or it will be towed immediately. You can't talk to me like that, Tanya shrieked. Victor and I are in a complicated emotional state. He and I are connected on a spiritual level you wouldn't understand. 30 seconds, Elliot said calmly, checking his watch. Then I authorize impound. Tanya looked at me, desperate. Helena, she begged, voice suddenly trembling. Tell him to stop. You can't just replace someone you loved. You can't just give up without closure. I didn't give up, I said quietly. I walked away. Because you're scared, she whispered. You're scared he'll choose me. He already did, I replied, the moment he hid behind you to justify disrespect. Her face twisted, hurt, disbelief, rage, all tangled together. You'll regret this, she spat. Both of you. Ma'am, Elliot said, 15 seconds. Tanya glared at him, then at me. Then she stormed to her Audi, yanked the door open, and peeled out backwards so aggressively she nearly clipped the security bollards. She sped off, middle finger out the window, tires squealing against asphalt. Jerome muttered, "Jesus Christ," under his breath. The trucker shouted, "Finally!" Elliot clicked his pen and marked something on his clipboard. Completely unbothered. "Shipment clear," he said to the driver. Then he turned to me. "You good?" he asked softly. I nodded. "Dinner at your place?" he added, raising an eyebrow. A slow smile pulled at my lips. "You bet." And as the truck rumbled past us into the yard, I realized something. Victor and Tanya weren't in love with each other. They were in love with the drama. And when I stopped participating in it, they had nowhere to put it anymore. So they brought it here, to my job, to my peace. But it didn't land. Because drama only survives where someone feeds it. And I was done feeding. After the shipyard showdown, I expected, foolishly, that things might finally go quiet. But people like Victor and Tanya don't go quiet. They go loud. And when they lose control of the narrative, they go nuclear. The very next night, while I was cooking pasta and listening to old rock on low volume, my phone buzzed with a message from a mutual acquaintance. "You might want to see this." Attached, a social media link. I tapped it. Victor had posted a 12-minute video titled, "Dating a Narcissistic Woman, My Story of Emotional Abuse and Ghosting." I sighed so hard I almost choked on air. There he was, perfect lighting, perfect hair, sad music in the background, sitting on his pristine couch talking to his front-facing camera like a tragedy had happened. He sniffled dramatically. "Guys, I never thought I'd share this, but I need to raise awareness." Awareness. Oh God. "She ghosted me," he said, voice breaking. "After 18 months, no conversation, no warning, no closure." Warning? He created the warning, 10 p.m. heart emojis and cosmetics-scented hugs. "She dumped my things in the lobby like trash," he continued. "She made me question my worth as a man. She weaponized her silence. It was psychological manipulation." Weaponized her silence. I paused the video, rubbing my temples. That's when another notification pinged. "Someone tagged you in the comments." I clicked. Under his sob story video, the comments section had turned into a digital bonfire. Comment from Julie M. "Didn't you brag about your work wife buying you lunch every day?" Comment from Stephen P. "Bro, you literally said heart emojis didn't mean anything. Now you're crying?" Comment from Maya G. "Helena fixed your car for free. Maybe try saying thank you instead of acting like a victim." Comment from Port Girl New. "Victor, sweetie, you told half the bar that Helena was too intense about boundaries. This is embarrassing." Comment from someone anonymous. "Didn't Tanya show up at her job yesterday screaming?" There were dozens more. Screenshots, memories, receipts. The community around us wasn't large, and word had spread fast. Victor's entire narrative collapsed in real time. 10 minutes later, the video disappeared. He'd deleted it. The aftershock. Later that week, Dave stopped by my bay during break. "Saw Victor's meltdown video," he said casually, biting into a donut. "Well, saw the 10 minutes it lasted before the comments roasted him alive." I chuckled. I didn't even finish it. "He tried to weaponize being the victim," Dave said. "Forgot that everyone in this town saw Tanya at the gate screaming like a banshee." "People don't react well to hypocrisy." Dave nodded. "Also, Elliot told me Tanya tried to call him twice, from 3 different numbers." I raised an eyebrow. "To apologize?" "No," Dave said, licking sugar off his thumb. "To accuse him of stealing her soulmate." I groaned. "Unbelievable." "You dodged mortars," Dave replied. "Not bullets, mortars." He wasn't wrong. The Tanya fallout. A week later, I heard the final piece through the grapevine. After Victor realized I wasn't coming back, he'd run straight to Tanya. Full force, full intensity, full, "you're my real soulmate" energy. And for the first time, Tanya understood something I'd learned long ago. The attention is only fun when it's not serious. She loved flirting with a taken man. She loved the thrill. She loved being the one he texted late at night. But when Victor actually showed up at her door, emotional suitcase in hand, ready to pour all his neediness onto her, she ghosted him too. Poetic doesn't even begin to cover it. Meanwhile, my life wasn't dramatic anymore. Instead, it was peaceful, almost unnervingly so. But peace, I learned, is quiet only until you start listening. Then you notice how full it is. On a clear Saturday evening, Elliot and I sat on my porch with 2 beers, same brand as the sunset photo, watching the sky turn gold. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed behind his head. "You ever miss it?" he asked. "Miss what?" "The adrenaline, the chaos, the fireworks. Some people confuse that with love." I thought about it. I thought about Victor's constant highs and lows, apologies followed by gaslighting, affection followed by neglect, passion followed by arguments over nothing. I thought about Tanya and her glittering confidence masking a deep need to be desired. I thought about the doorbell pounding, the accusations, the late-night texts, the drama that always felt like a wildfire I was supposed to put out with a cup of water. And then I looked at Elliot, steady, present, patient. "No," I said simply. "I don't miss chaos." He smiled, that soft, knowing smile he saved for quiet moments. "Good," he said, "because you deserve calm seas." I leaned my head on his shoulder. "Calm seas get boring for some people." "Not for us," he murmured. "We work around storms all day." That made me laugh. The wind carried the sound out over the yard, into the industrial hum of cranes and distant tugboats returning home for the night. I felt safe, quiet, settled, seen, not adored, not worshipped, not performed for, just seen. And it occurred to me then that Victor never actually saw me. He saw what I could provide. He saw what I could stabilize. He saw what I could tolerate. But Elliot saw me. The final lesson. I looked at the darkening sky and spoke aloud, the kind of reflection you save for the end of a story you never meant to write. "You know," I said, "the moment someone insults your character just to justify their disrespect, the relationship is already over." Elliot squeezed my hand gently. "You didn't lose anything," he said. "You just made room." I closed my eyes, letting the cool air fill my lungs. He was right. For so long I thought holding on was strength. But walking away, quietly, without theatrics, was the strongest thing I'd ever done. Because nothing haunts a manipulator like a victim who refuses to play the game. Victor had tantrums. Tanya had meltdowns. Their drama fizzled out without someone to catch fire from it. And me? I found what I didn't know I'd been missing. Not big energy, not chaotic energy, not revenge energy. Just peaceful energy. The kind that lets you breathe. The kind that lets you sleep. The kind that lets you finally live. It felt open. Open in a way that terrified Victor. Open in a way that Elliot noticed. Open in a way that felt like the start of something honest. Something calm. Something I thought didn't exist anymore.